Hello， 大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博然。China's largest and most successful coffee chain, Luckin, has opened its first 2 stores in the United States, just months after overtaking Starbucks here on the Chinese mainland, in both sales and the number of stores. So how did Western media react? Were they warning customers of being spied on by Chinese coffee? Or were they making up claims of slave labour in the cultivation of their coffee beans? Surprisingly, none of the above. Western media reports on the Chinese success story were amazingly positive, and sometimes even rooting for China to beat Starbucks in their own market. So what's going on? Is this a case of the anti-China hacks on Capitol Hill just not having enough time to come up with anti-China propaganda? Today we'll go beyond the propaganda. This is Reports on China. I'm Andy Borham here in Shanghai. Let's get reporting. Western media was buzzing recently over the opening of 2 Luckin coffee stores in New York City, and they were playfully chiding at Starbucks to watch its back. You see, New York is the stomping ground of that American coffee giant, with 190 cafes, more than anywhere else in the USA. But get this, Shanghai opened its 1000th Starbucks cafe way back in 2022. They literally colonized this place, which made it all the more impressive when local Chinese coffee brand Luckin beat Starbucks in China both in stores and sales over the past few years. And they're not stopping with just China, setting their eyes on international dominance as well, with a bold move to start their assault right in New York City, the most symbolic stronghold of Starbucks. That is bold. And despite my preconceived worries, Western media did not pump out a bunch of anti-China reports about the Chinese coffee brand, which they could have easily done. There was no warning about CCP spying through the Luckin app you have to download in order to order coffee from the store. There was no claim of slave labour in the picking of Luckin coffee beans, many of which come from southern China's Yunnan province. By the way, Luckin supports 20,000 workers there, which is pretty impressive. Instead, Western media were almost gushing about the new coffee store, impressed at how it beat Starbucks in China, and warning the American coffee giant to watch its back. Check out this headline from CNN. Watch out, Starbucks. China's biggest coffee chain opens its first US locations. They wrote, perhaps the biggest storyline has been Luckin's dominance over Starbucks in China. The number of Luckins overtook Starbucks in China in 2019, giving them the confidence to plot a US expansion. Then there's this from Business Insider. I tried Luckin Coffee's first US location in New York City. Starbucks should watch out, by a young reporter who headed to the new Greenwich store on opening day and interviewed a bunch of customers, all of whom had raving reviews. Fox Business ran with this headline, Chinese coffee giant makes bold move into Starbucks territory with New York City debut, where they explained, Luckin Coffee has long been considered a threat to rival chains such as Starbucks, as it has become the fastest growing chain in China. In fact, I couldn't find a single Western mainstream media report about Luckin's US opening that was overly negative or relied on blatant anti-China tropes to paint the coffee outlet as dangerous, dirty, or dystopian. So what's going on? Well, I have 2 theories. One is that the usual suspects on Capitol Hill and their cronies in the Western mainstream media didn't have enough time to come up with anti-China propaganda surrounding Luckin Coffee before the media was swamped with positive reviews of the first 2 outlets in New York City. But to be completely honest, I don't think that is the case here. The anti-China brigade has been known to move very quickly when they want to, and they also don't seem to care much about having any truth to their claims, so it would have been very easy to plant some hideous lies in the media if they truly wanted to. My other theory is much more likely to be what's going on here, and that is that they just don't see Luckin Coffee as a threat yet. Perhaps they're confident it won't succeed at all, in which case they can just ignore what they think will be a mere blip on the coffee radar. Which means that if Luckin does go well, and all of the buzz is pointing that way, then you can bet they'll be working on fake reports and fake accusations to dent the brand's success on US soil. It's important to note that if this theory is correct, then the vast amount of positive mainstream media coverage Luckin received following its New York City openings will be a real worry to the anti-China hawks in Washington, D.C. Now, I would say that Luckin could have easily received millions of dollars in publicity from news articles alone, not to mention the huge internet buzz that went along with it. And that raises the question, what will the anti-China brigade allege about Luckin to try and bring it down? Well, you just have to look at their playbook and it's all pretty clear. I think for sure, as with TikTok and its parent company ByteDance, they will say that Luckin Coffee is beholden to the Communist Party of China and that ordinary Americans using the cafe's app to order drinks is a serious breach of national security, because they'll say all of that data is now in the hands of the evil CCP. That allegation is almost a given. What they'll probably also try and do is allege mistreatment of employees back in China, most likely through its coffee picking and processing stage. Now, for ordinary Americans, the idea of slave labor in the coffee chain is already a big topic, so Capitol Hill will most likely try and allege that this is the case in Yunnan province, where Luckin sources a large number of its beans. It sounds absolutely stupid, but they will probably try and tie Uyghur people in with their claims and allege that poor Uyghurs are being shipped to Yunnan to work against their will under slave labor conditions, picking and processing coffee beans. So what is my advice for Luckin Coffee? Well, be ready. And since we're talking about the US market, where people are already sick and tired of US intervention and meddling around the world, perhaps Luckin could consider making fun of the allegations, turn them into a joke, which is all they are. I think ordinary Americans will appreciate that, and you might even win some more market share from your humor. And on that note, that will be all for today, you guys. But as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How long do you think it'll take for false allegations against Luckin to surface in Western media? And what do you think Luckin should do to fight back? Do let me know down below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.